gamers? I wanted to talk about some Destiny 2 stuff today. I've seen a lot of videos recently, one from Glad saying, PvP players, recognize, open your eyes, nothing's gonna change, it's a PvE game, like, move on, right? And I saw some reactions to that, and arguments saying, well, PvP is important, it does have a player base, it keeps the game alive. I get it. Both sides have great arguments overall, but I wanted to talk about this because I'm seeing some of my friends get a little frustrated, and one of my good friends, one of my best friends in the community, True Vanguard, has essentially said, I can't risk it anymore on Destiny. I'm moving on. And that is crazy because True Vanguard, he is like using sidearms and fusions and shotguns and sniping, and he's changing up his playstyle. He's not running the same loadout that some of the sweaty players use every game all day trying to dominate. He's using everything. He's using a ton of weird stuff just to try to make the game fun. And if he's at his wit's end, I can't imagine the average player. And I understand that Lightfall has had some pretty mediocre reception overall. Some of the story beats weren't that good. The raid was fine and everything. The new dungeon, the underwatery dungeon stuff, there's a lot of complaints from that one. Some of the most complaints I've seen from a dungeon, and I think that there's some cool story that's happened. But it's like we're like 6 months into the DLC. It feels like a lot of people are checked out, and then they're like, "Oh, they just had one of the biggest story reveals ever. Why didn't they do this in Lightfall? Like right in the campaign. Why didn't they do this in Lightfall?" And so I understand that tension is maybe high because Lightfall hasn't been amazing, but they've got another DLC coming. They've got a lot of people that love this game, but there's some people that are checking out, that are frustrated, that are potentially leaving. And I am now seeing this post from Kujay, and I wanted to talk about this because this post is something that I feel like I've done in the past. I feel like I've done this with Genshin Impact as well. I complain about games a lot, and I'm starting to realize that a lot of our complaints don't really matter, which sucks. It doesn't feel good. But if I have any recommendation to a content creator who's watching this is super risky for your own brand because other devs see this and it hurts you. And it sucks so bad to say that is like, don't stand up for what you believe in because it's not going to change anything. But as much as Kujay or myself or anyone believes in PvP and there should be maps, I agree. They would have done it by now if it made financial sense. They would have done it by now if the data said, let's do it, because you have to remember that Bungie is not a small studio that is going to fold or buckle to stuff like this. And I want to paint this picture really quickly. Okay. I am a YouTuber. I'm pretty big, but I still see comments from those assholes, and it still kind of hurts. And people say, "Get thick skin. You're famous on YouTube. You should be used to this by now." But it still hurts, right? Now, I think that I'm not as big as Bungie. Bungie has a lot more eyes, ears, people, data, lots of different stuff. But you never get thick skin, no matter how big you get. And so when someone does this, Bungie is probably sitting there a little bit angry, a little bit spiteful, and it probably doesn't actually tilt the needle that much. It just makes Bungie mad at Kujay. And other devs seeing this going, ooh, do I want to work with this guy? And so I would warn anyone to be very careful about this stuff because Bungie has their baby Destiny, and they're going to protect their baby Destiny the way they think is best, but everyone has an ego. Right? I have an ego about my own videos. If someone critiques me, and I take it personally and stuff, it's like, you're wrong. You don't know anything. You're not MTashed. They're saying the same thing. We're Bungie. We know what we're doing, right? And we're not all going to agree. But I do feel like it's month after month, year after year at this point. And some of the stuff that Glad says is right. Is like, Kujay, my boy, they're not going to change, and all this is doing is making you look a little bit salty, and unfortunately, some of the stuff, maybe even naive. He got absolutely dunked on by some devs down below. What is this ad? It's not because I play Genshin Impact. There's a lot of stuff down here where people are just kind of roasting him and being like, you are an idiot. But The reason Kujay is doing this, let me just like zoom in on my stupid little head here. The reason Kujay is doing it is the reason I do it. And I've done it in the past. And I do it about Genshin is because we play these games and it is our job and it is our livelihood in some cases. And so we are maybe a little bit addicted. We are absolutely terrified of the future of the game. And so there's a bit of self-preservation going on. But also because we put in more hours than the average person, anything that's frustrating in the game goes from frustrating to resentment. It goes to like anger. And I think that this is a moment where, you know, Kujay maybe has hit that point of absolute tilt, of burnout, of anger. And he is trying to stand up against something and he wants to give his opinion. And I get that. I respect that. But I think that this hurts him more than it helps him. I think it hurts him more than it helps the community. I understand he's advocating for the PvP people. And I think like it's very important that people recognize Bungie is making how many millions of dollars. And they have so many data and analytic teams. And Destiny PvP has been so bad for so long that if it was something they were going to change, they probably would have done it by now. If they recognized they were bleeding insane amounts of players, they would have fixed it. How long has Gambit been bad? Right? I know Gambit was a bit of a gamble. It was like this new thing. They were trying something new. It did okay, I think. But I think they probably recognized in the first year or two, yeah, Gambit is not selling games. It's not played enough. And it's in the game, but they're not going to spend seasons and seasons and dev time fixing it because raids, dungeons, PvE is what is selling the game. And I just want to kind of reiterate something, or I guess like let's just change the avenue here. Is if you have a car and the car runs beautifully, would you just change the brakes? Would you just change them and completely get new brakes if you're chilling? You go to the mechanic and they say, yeah, the brakes are like 80% good. A lot of the times you don't change them. Because why? It's redundant. You don't need to change them. They're fine. Until it gets to a point where they are bleeding, they're probably not going to fix anything. Because why would you? Have you ever heard of this term? MVP. Minimum viable product. It is a very popular term in the business world. What is the minimum viable product that we can get out to the market and have it succeed? Well, every DLC that Bungie is doing is not an MVP product. It is probably way beyond that. It is a refined product where they've got raids and dungeons and story, and like they're putting a lot of effort into it, right? But the core of Destiny is an MVP product. The PvP works. Gambit works. The strikes aren't changing a lot, but they work. And unfortunately, for people that have been playing the game for 8 years, they view that as something that needs to change as well, as something that needs to really evolve. And I agree that it should. It's boring playing the same old maps. But Bungie is most likely not willing or able to put in the amount of man hours it would need to fix some of these systems right now while they work on Marathon, some other game they're probably developing. They're working on other IP stuff. Like Luke Smith is in a completely different role than he used to be, apparently on like IP, like progress and generation. So like I'm guessing taking Destiny to the next level, whether it's an anime, look at League of Legends, the League of Legends show, Arcane. Maybe something like that. I don't know what he's doing. And maybe that's changed since then. I'm not going to pretend to know everything, and I'm not going to look it all up. But I think that Bungie has something that is making them money. They have other projects that they would rather build into this behemoth game than go back and fix the core playlists on something that is potentially, after final shape, going in the back burner. If this game, Destiny 2, was supposed to last another 5 to 10 years, I could understand this product needs to be fixed. But what if Final Shape is the final shape? What if it is the final DLC? They say that Destiny is going to continue. How do you know it's Destiny 2? How do you know that they're not going to transition away, not tomorrow, not right after this DLC, but maybe in the next few years, a new Destiny game? The Light and Dark saga is done. Maybe they are going to move on towards something new. And I can't confirm that. I don't know. I have no foresight into this. But at some point, they are going to say, yeah, we could fix that, or we could build a bunch of really new cool stuff instead. We could fix that, but it's going away after 2 or 3 years. People are moving on. Why would we bother? And I think that, many of us probably have felt this or known this for a long time, is like, they're not fixing this stuff. But month after month, week after week, it's like, take a hint! They're not gonna change it! Move on! And I listened to that video from Glad, and it's like, Kujay, my guy, this has been dead for years. Like, and it sucks to say that and to feel that realization, but I have been playing this anime game that I essentially hate, and it has changed since the start. I thought it was about artifacts and weapons and characters and passives, and it isn't. It's about playing Mario mini games. It's worse versions of mini games. It's a terrible game if you love combat and all the stats and all that stuff. It has evolved into a game that I don't love anymore, and I recognize that, and I'm getting better at recognizing this product isn't for me. And so if Destiny isn't for you, then don't buy their DLCs. Don't give them money. Don't spend money in the shops. You can play it, with what you own and spend some time on it, but don't give them more money if it's not the game that you want. And it feels like every time they do a DLC, or they do a hype post, I think there's another one on August 22nd, saying, the final shape is coming, there's all this crazy stuff. If you see, okay, there's one raid, there's 1 or 2 dungeons, there's a reprise raid, and there's 1 PvP map. If that is not game-changing to you, I'm talking core playlist changing, PvP, strike, then you can buy it and play it for a week or a month or whatever, but you will go back to resenting the game. You will go back to burning out because the same strikes, the same PvP maps have been in the game for 5+ years. They're not changing. They haven't changed. And at this point, you don't like Destiny. You like the new things that come out in Destiny. Play them. Enjoy them. But you won't have fun playing the same thing for the 5,000th hour. Right? It's no one plays games as dedicated as the Destiny people, I feel like. For the amount of content that changes, for the amount of legitimate progression and grind that you can get, it's not RuneScape where you can chop wood and there's an economy and you're trading and I feel like Destiny is a good shooter. There's cool loot here and there, but there's a lot of rehashed guns that will not change your gameplay. The next 140 hand cannon is not going to change your gameplay at all. The next pulse, the next sniper, the next rocket, none of it matters. All of your gear with a 64 and a 67 roll is good enough. You won't get an upgrade. It won't change your gameplay. So you have to look at the content that is coming. You have to recognize and vote with your wallet. Yep, that's enough to be worth the price tag. Yes, that's something I want to dive into. But once it's done, move on. I've been playing the last couple DLCs like that. I jump into Lightfall, I grinded it out for 3 weeks straight, and then I was like, okay. A better roll on my Neomuna hand cannon isn't going to change anything, and it isn't fun to grind it anymore. And thankfully, because I am not tied to the game financially the way I used to be, it's easier for me to do that. But if you're not a content creator that's tied to the game financially, don't slave away on a game and waste your time on a game that's not fun anymore. 800 hours in, 1,000, 2,000. I don't know where everyone is at, but I think that you guys have played this game for a long time. There may be a little bit of that, you know, what's it called? Sunk cost theory. It's like, oh, I've already played so much. I don't want to waste all that time. You've already spent the time. I'm not telling you to open your eyes necessarily, but I'm giving you a little nudge saying, you know, maybe it's time to try something new. Play some Baldur's Gate. Download a free game on your phone like Shattered Pixel Dungeon or something and try something new. I just watch this stuff and I see these reactions and it reminds me of me. You know, it reminds me of me. I did this stuff. I did it all the freaking time, man. I'm literally blacklisted in Genshin Impact as well because I do this stuff. I complain about games because I want it to be better. But the sick and sad reality is it's not going to change unless the data that these huge billionaire companies has changes. And PvP, Gambit, the Strike playlist, it's not enough to stop them from making hundreds of millions of dollars every time a DLC comes out. They know if they make a raid, they make a dungeon, if they make 3 more exotics, you are going to buy it. That's all there is to it. Love you guys. Miss you. Maybe I'll see you for Lightfall. I mean, Fall in Shape. I mean, Fall